When I rolled down the window, she stepped farther off the side of the highway. Frank stood to investigate, and I leaned forward, nudging the dog's head aside so I could greet the woman. "This your car I have hooked up?"
"It is."
The woman's eyes were large behind the fogged lenses of her glasses, and her gaze was equal parts relieved and wary. Her wind-whipped hair lashed across her pale face. She looked ready to bolt at the slightest provocation. The strain on her face and the tension around her eyes were more than just a sign of exhaustion. She looked worn, and so brittle I expected the wind to snap her in half. But she smiled at Frank, and the impact of the curve of those lips was a punch in the gut.
"Is that a standard poodle?"
"Sure is. His name is Frank." The tip of her nose and the high arch of her cheekbones were red and windburned. Her hat was pulled low over her brows and ears, and her scarf was wrapped tightly about her neck. I knew she had to be chilled, even with the oversized jacket clutched about her. I had hooked her car to the tow bar over 5 miles back. "You've been walking a while. I can give you a ride the rest of the way into Raven's Gap." Her gaze dropped to the side panel of the truck, where I knew she could read the logo emblazoned on the side: Raven's Gap Police Department. Instead of the ease those words generally instilled in people, unease pinched her brow. She clenched her jaw when her teeth started to chatter.
"Thank you, but—"
"At least ride in your car. I do anything suspicious, you'll have a fair chance to jump out and make a run for it." Her eyes flew to mine. I did not need to be a cop to see the well of secrets in this woman's eyes. She nodded eventually.
"Okay."
I knew she would be leery if I helped her with her bag, so I rolled up the window and stayed in the cab. I watched in the rear-view mirror as she rounded the back of our vehicles. She lifted a hand once she was settled into the driver's seat, and I put the truck in gear. Frank bounded into the back seat. A glance in the mirror showed his nose pressed to the window as he stared at our passenger. His tail thumped against the seat. He had a better rapport with people than I. We would have snow tonight. The sky was heavy, and the meteorologists were predicting close to a foot of accumulation. The temperature reading on the dash proclaimed it to be 17 degrees out. The wind chill made it even colder. I checked the mirror again, but could not see the woman's face at a quick glance. I dropped my gaze. The road curved with the river as we entered the canyon. I slowed as I entered a straight stretch and saw Ed lumbering toward me in his decrepit tow truck. He pulled to a stop beside me, and I rolled my window down.
"Jeff came by the shop and said there was a woman out here needing a tow."
The man's age was as indeterminate as his tow trucks and the trapper hat perpetually perched on his head. His gaze was hard when it met mine, mouth a tight line. Frank shoved his head between mine and the window, grinning his wide canine smile at the man who always had treats in his pocket. Ed tossed him one now, and he snapped it out of the air. At first, I'd been leery of allowing Frank to eat any treats Ed offered him, but he had told me in no uncertain terms it was me he hated and wished dead, not my dog. "I got her." He let out a low whistle.
"Haven't seen a Honda that old in some time."
I had thought the same thing when I hooked it up. The car was older than its driver. "I'll drop it off at your shop." He lifted a hand in greeting toward the car's occupant. He started to drive on, but then his brakes groaned.
"Listen, Hector."
He shoved the trapper hat up and scratched at his heavily lined forehead.
"The cancer's back. Doc says..."